Lesson for all of us. What a tremendous sacrifice and what humility for the great and gracious Godhead. On its heights, life is full of splendor, majestic, royal. Aurobindo says it's born out of the consciousness force of the Supreme. It is divine on its heights, and it has chosen to make its home, just as the divine has chosen to make his home amidst the minutest particles which just have a brief existence, come and die. And Aurobindo is taking us on this journey of life, step by step. He is revealing to us things that are hidden from our sight. And if we were to really know of them, we would have to do a lot of tapasya, who knows for how many lives, just to develop the inner sight to see. It's His grace that He is revealing to us in such a simple way. It is truly the prasad of Aurobindo's tapasya that He is sharing with us. So He has shown to us at least 3 levels of life. First, where life is completely subservient to matter. It eats matter, appears from it and vanishes into it. One knows not how, at least science wonders. If we really were to take a microscopic vision of this earth, there is not an inch, except perhaps in the Himalayan peaks, which is not covered, rather teeming with microorganisms. Thank God, God didn't give us microscopic eyes. Otherwise we would be washing our hands all the time. It is teeming with microscopic life forms all around. Nothing is there which is free of them. In one way or the other, they are there. They may be in very small amounts, they may be in big amount, but they are there. Life surface are teeming. These are life forms which have totally, their life is like an automaton. There is a will in them to just to survive, and they grow. They can grow infinitesimally, infinite times. They keep dividing. They actually don't die. They are in a sense immortal, because life is immortal. The first forms it has created are immortal. They cannot die except if you bombard them with all kinds of things. They are virtually immortal. And that's why all life, to maintain its balance, introduces from within itself the principle of death. Death is not so much an opposite of life as it is in our earthly state a helper of life. There is a poem of Aurobindo, Life and Death, where he reveals this truth to us. Life, death, death, life have claimed our imagination and thought, seemed opposite so far. But now the hidden pages are open. And when these pages are open, what do we find? Life only is. Life only is. Or our life a brief death, until by life we are surprised. So this, what we call death, is only a little screen. It has to be put so that earth does not become flooded with all kinds of life forms which have become redundant. So the principle of death itself is a creation of life for its own purposes. Next layer, after this automaton life which has a very subconscious will, there is another layer where life has established itself in matter. Now it seeks to expand and grow. The first purpose and business of life is to establish itself in matter. It must take hold of matter strongly. And that is what we see even in little children. The first year of life or the first few months, all that the force of life does it to make sure that it in the body it can establish itself with firmness and fixity. Having done that, just as a little baby begins to crawl and move and climb and do every kind of thing, so the next level of life is that it seeks to expand and grow, because within life there is this impulse to possess, to make everything its own, because it comes from the vast. It knows that. It's instinct with a sense of infinite. It cannot be satisfied with finite. It cannot be satisfied with smallness. Even in smallness, it seeks to multiply in its own way. It must expand and make room and space. But again, because each unit of life has this impulse, the principle of death comes to demarcate boundaries. Because in every unit of life, there is this will to expand and grow. That is how the ancient described Vayu Matarishwan, the breath of life. What is its purpose? It can expand and grow. Even the universe expands and contracts after a while, expands again. It's a cosmic breath. Having expanded to a limit, then life from within its womb begins to develop a mind. But this mind is a mind subservient to the aims of life. This mind is not a reflecting mind. It's not a mind which begins to look up and tries to find a hidden cause of things as human mind in its full development is. It is a mind which is completely subservient to the aims of life. It must use its little intelligence or thought to pick up things which life wants. That's its purpose. It is the mind which we find very commonly in the marketplace. That is a kind of mind which is created. And this is what we have just seen, the three levels at which life explores itself or evolves out of the sleep of matter. And so far it has done it successfully in beautiful ways, in many, many ways, countless ways. The second thing that Aurobindo reveals to us is that these evolutionary layers exist in us, and that is a problem we have to reconcile with as we take our upward ascent. As we ascend, our feet are chained by our own self. Our own, not just ignorance, our own desires prevent us from taking an utter heavenly flight. This is a whole world of desire where there is one, the will to survive, the will to expand. In human beings, it takes the forms of ambitions, lusts, greeds, little wants, petty quarrels, the very stuff of our everyday existence ordinarily. Even when the mind comes, we use it only to justify the demands of life. Ask any person, why are you unhappy? He will point a finger at somebody else or at something else which he has not, as if one had it, one would be happy. So this is a kind of world that life has created so far, and this world exists in us, in all of us. There is nobody who is an exception to this rule. And this is one of the big difficulties of our ascent to the divine life. And yet this ascent will be, Aurobindo assures us, because within life itself there is its principle of ascent. What is this principle? Life cannot be satisfied till it reaches its own heights. This is introduced within us, this divine discontent. There is a little poem of Aurobindo where he says, there is a need within the soul of man, the splendors of the surface never sate. For life and mind and their glory and debate are the slow prelude of a vaster theme, a preface to the epic supreme. Try we may, but we are never satisfied. That is the story of Midas' touch, that he kept on touching things which would become golden. And in the end, he ended up touching his own daughter. So this is how life has this in itself, the principle of death, the principle of incapacity, the principle of desire itself is, on one side, it's a big fetter. On the other side, because there is this principle of insatiable desire, it cannot be satisfied. That's why Aurobindo uses the word, a fire that grows by the fuel's death. The more you pour fuel into desire, the more it grows. The mother says in one of the passages, there are only two ways to conquer desire. Either to satisfy it completely, or to completely get rid of it. So she says satisfying is just impossible. You cannot do it. Because within itself is the principle. The more you put in it, it seeks more. It will seek something else, something else, something else. And it goes on and on. So, therefore, this is the chain that Aurobindo is showing us, which life has wound around the feet of matter. And while at one level, this is the chain with which it has dragged matter out of its inertia. If there was no desire, matter would have remained at the level of sleeping, maybe automatons, half awake, half conscious, almost sleepy life. This principle of desire has dragged it out of inertia. But the same chain, when life tries to go beyond, becomes a fetter. It's a two-way process. On one side, it picks things out of the inertia. So people who like to remain inert, asleep, they should be asked. It's good if they have a little bit of ambition, because this is what pulls them out. But if one wants to lead a spiritual life, it pulls one back. The same thing, which is a chain to drag matter, becomes a fetter to our own self. Having shown this, Aurobindo is taking us to a still deeper level of the mystery. Who are these forces, these plotters, these little deities behind the movements of life, who stage the drama of our earthly existence? These little gods who came from heights, but here, under the spell of the inconscient, they have assumed a disfigured shape, because that is the task of inconscient, that everything that enters into it, it tries to disfigure it, tortures it, and gives it the body of a disfigured god. So Aurobindo will take us to introduce us to some of these creatures who may not look very pleasant or nice, but he is by our side, taking us on this great journey. So it's a delight, because Aurobindo is carrying us. This is page 251. We start the new canto. Canto 5, the Godheads of the little life. He has described the kingdoms. Now he is describing to us the presiding deities who are behind it. This is a deep occult knowledge. It can be revealed only by occult vision, which we can develop through yoga, or it can be received by faith. There is no way that any intellectual analysis can tell us whether it is there or not there. We can only get hints or probabilities. So Aurobindo is revealing us this occult knowledge which once existed in some way, which has been lost completely in today's times. So this is where he takes us, a busy, restless, uncouth populace. It's line 24 on page 151, the Godheads of the little life. A busy, restless, uncouth populace, teemed in their dusky, unnoted thousands there, in a mist of secrecy wrapping the world scene, the little deities of time's nether act. Someone asked Mother, I think we mentioned it a couple of days back, but good to remember, because so much is going on about bacteria and viruses and all kinds of prevention. People are putting 3-layered mask and 10-layered mask and all kinds of things. She has said so beautifully, she describes this whole, when the First World War was getting over around 1918, there was the first pandemic of influenza. That time pandemics meant just a few countries. In Japan, there were villages which were wiped off, and the mother describes a story how a postman went to a village, and when he went there was nobody to receive the letter. It was completely wiped off and nobody knew, no news had reached. That was the kind of thing that had happened. And then she sees the deity entity which is behind it. A headless being who was simply sucking out life force from people. And this life forces from people, which was being thrown out into the atmosphere, was itself in its turn making a kind of cloud of vital forces. And there were two kinds of people who caught the disease. One, whom this being attacked, and they whom this being attacked died. And second, those who came under the influence of this misty cloud, they fell ill but came out. And then people were asking her, and she describes a similar scene, traveling in bus and seeing everybody holding kerchiefs to the mouth. Then suddenly she says, after all, what is this being? And he sure enough comes to her, attacks her, and for a few days she is flat, fighting with this being, till she sees on one occasion he comes close to her, tries to suck the life force from her body, And then mother says, with all my occult powers, I threw him off. And by next day, the cases had started coming down drastically, and within few days it was gone, because that entity was gone. So these are elemental powers which are there, which are unseen, and wherever there is a gap, there they attack. And the best protection, mother has said, is a kind of suraksha chakra, the subtle physical envelope which is given to everyone. And if you remain in a state of cheerfulness, in a state of trust, in a state of peace, they cannot pierce through this envelope. This is a natural protection given to every human being, a state of immunity. But the moment we allow fear, distrust, depression, then they tend to attack us. So Aurobindo, in a very nutshell, is revealing to us these powers which have a hold on earth nature, and they have a great hold on matter, because matter started like that. To begin with, they were the ones who brought life into it. So they believe it's their right. It's their province. So even when they cannot touch something inside us, they can still touch the physical sheath. In a mist of secrecy wrapping the world scene, the little deities of time's nether-act, who work remote from heaven's controlling eye, plotted unknown to the creatures whom they move, the small conspiracies of this petty reign, amused with the small contrivings, the brief hopes, and little eager steps and little ways. Wherever there is littleness of life, they are there. For instance, in casinos. And the mother has again given us such interesting stories of the gambler of Monte Carlo who was these beings were whispering into him where he should put the number, and they would make him succeed. And he thought he is succeeding. He didn't realize he is a puppet in their hand. Till suddenly one of them whispered, now put all you have at stake. And he put, and he lost. And then they whispered, now you shoot yourself. For them it's a drama. And Aurobindo would tell us, where do they act most? So wherever these kind of things are there, that is why going into such places, especially when one has taken to inner life, is not a very happy thing, because every time we go, we bring truckloads of these things into us by the very fact that we have traveled into a place like that. That's one reason why mother started the cinema in the playground, because people want to see movie and they would end up going to cinema halls where all kinds of things are there, and we would get them contaminated. So understanding human nature, and with the love and the wisdom, she said, okay, you want to watch cinema, do it within my confines rather than running around here and there. Of course, we are too unconscious, we don't realize it, but many people do experience some kind of a headache or heaviness when they come back from a cinema hall. So these are beings who amuse themselves with such things. And reptile wallowings in the dark and dust, and the crouch and ignominy of creeping life, a trepidant and motley multitude, a strange pell-mell of magic artisans, was seen moulding the plastic clay of life, an elfin brood, an elemental kind. These beings also do many kinds of mischief. For instance, they are the cause of accidents. Very many times they just put a blinder over the eye and one misses what could be obvious. Again, there are a number of stories mother has said. I myself encountered stories where people have met with accidents and they don't know what happened. They suddenly felt they couldn't see. They didn't see, something which was very obvious. Another way they take into grip human beings is that we have in Pondicherry Park, I think it's still there, that huge Rakshasa kind of, is he still there? He used to be there earlier. Now this is one of these beings who causes accidents. So what he does is, wherever there are people who are very open to these kind of forces, it gets into them and spurs them to drive faster and faster and faster. And people begin to drive faster and faster and faster. Now what they want is that they meet with an accident and then there is a lot of blood and excitement and drama. They suck it and they like it. And at least I have had in my clinical practice people who developed symptoms first time after they visited either the scene of an accident or the scene of some such death. This not to tell us that we should be afraid. Brahman is in us, we should not be afraid. But we should try to remain calm and not get caught in the excitement. They love that. They love excitement, drama, horror, things like that. So Sri Aurobindo is revealing to us their nature. An elemental kind, astonished by the unaccustomed glow, as if immanent in the shadows, started up, imps with wry limbs and carved beast visages, sprite prompters, goblin wizened or fairy small, and genie fairer but unsouled and poor, and fallen beings their heavenly portion lost. So there is a motley crowd, that's why he's describing. All kinds of beings are there. Even she says that there are beings who are little helpful. Mother describes an incident. Actually, we all have experienced it, but we have not seen the beings there. That how some of them would tug at her sari and say the milk is boiling. And she would see a little being who is tugging at her sari and pallu and saying, the milk is boiling. They even do little mischief, like, we have misplaced an object. And we are just wondering where it is. This is one of their common mischiefs. Watches suddenly, stopping. Sri Aurobindo had this incident where he walked through. They can come anywhere. There is their task. They are little entities. Sri Aurobindo wanted to see a watch time, and the watch stopped. Then he stepped into another room. Again the watch stopped. Then he went into a third room, and again the watch stopped. So he said, "But this is impossible." And the three watches started again. So they are like little imps who play such tricks. So he's telling us, and fallen beings, even when there are beings whose soul portion is lost and it goes back to its own worlds, and they are left here with only a mind and body, and at death their vital fragments and is found in that atmosphere. And fallen beings, their heavenly portion lost, and errant divinities trapped in time's dust. These have to be rescued. Sri Aurobindo says that one of his work is to rescue these fallen angels who have strayed away from their native worlds and got caught and trapped in time's dust. Milton has spoken of these fallen angels. Ignorant and dangerous wills, but armed with power, half animal, half God, their mood, their shape. So we see in Egypt, where occultism was so much developed, many of these gods had animal forms. Horus and many others, had an animal form or an animal head, because at the level of the vital, this is the form they assume. Half animal, half God. Their whispers come, an inarticulate force, awake in mind and echoing thought or word. To their sting of impulse, the heart's sanction draw, and in that little nature do their work, and fill its powers and creatures with unease. Next time, let's hope we never have any viral fever, but carefully we should observe what happens, what are the stages. You will invariably see that before it had come, of course we don't come to know, we'll feel either an unease, a restlessness, some kind of smell. Sometimes one can even feel the atmosphere with the hand. Sometimes just a taste changes, and the next day or the next to next day one is ill. Watch the thoughts which are coming, thoughts of depression. Strange, negative thoughts will begin to come, because this is the nature of these entities. They attack us like this, and something in us sanctions, and they begin to, make us feel morose, sad, as if some big calamity has fallen. Nothing is there, just a little fever, it'll be fine. And if we give sanction to them, then they really can play chaos with the mind. So Sri Aurobindo is revealing to us their nature. Its seed of joy they curse with sorrow's fruit. Put out with error's breath its scanty lights, and turn its surface truths to falsehood's ends. We know the other story, how the mother when some occultists tried to throw stones on Sri Aurobindo ashram, on Sri Aurobindo, and he said, I cannot throw anything within 25 meters range. He used to materialize stones and throw. So he planted a person who could become a medium because they cannot come otherwise. It was found that wherever this new servant went, there the stones began to materialize. And that's the time mother went deep inside. It's a long story, I'm just shortening it, and saw that these three vital entities, lower vital, they came to her and said, we are the fellows who are throwing stones. We are sorry. What do you want us to do for you? We will serve you also. Mother said, what can you do? They said, we can throw stones. Mother said, I don't need you, just go away from here. Of course, when this magic falls back, it is very dangerous because this occultist fell seriously ill. He went on a deathbed and his wife came running to mother that, he is on his deathbed and he feels it's because of this. And mother told this to Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo with his magnanimity says, oh, death for a few stones? And he recovered. So these are little creatures. He could see, how human beings become puppets. And there are certain vidyas, bhoot vidyas, where people master these beings, and this is the basis of black magic and lot of things people do. But none of them can touch, for sure, someone who is open to light and full of trust. In fact, our belief creates a problem. So sometimes ignorance is a safety. If we believe in them, it becomes a problem because we are anticipating, expecting, now that we know there are genies, can there be one around the corner? So this knowledge is not for fear or apprehension, but Sri Aurobindo is giving us the complete truth of this universe. Life's cart, finding no issue from ignorance, to sport with good and evil is their law, luring to failure and meaningless success. Even when they give us success, some of these deities people go and pray. In India there is this, everywhere it is there, Mannat Mangna. So you go and you ask some wish, and if this wish is fulfilled, people tie something and say, this is the best place, God is here. These places, if one really goes, the atmosphere is really not good at all. And people have found their own ways now. When I was taken in Vrindavan to Govardhan, they said if you do 7 Parikrama of Govardhan, it brings, some good results. So anyways, I was not interested. They said, no, now we can do it in car, if you don't want to travel 7 times, you can go around. I said, I'm not interested, please. Then they said, there is a mini Parikrama. This was interesting. So I said, let me see, what is this? So they had put a small stone, which they said is a replica of the Govardhan. And it was, hardly the size of this table, or maybe a little more, 1.5 times. So if you go around some 7 times, it has the same result. It was absurdity to its utmost, So I didn't want to disappoint my people. I mean, people who have taken with so much love and goodwill. I see, fine, you people can go. I really don't feel keen. So they went around. By the time the person who was leading, all others had dropped out, thinking the absurdity of the whole exercise. But anyways, after the 7 rounds, the priest was there and he asked for dakshina. So, and he was not satisfied with 50 rupees. So all that I thought is whether other people's wishes will be fulfilled or not, we don't know. But priest has found a novel way of fulfilling his wishes. So these are the kind of things that happen. These places are definitely not at all nice places. In fact, mother has also spoken of the Kali of Virampattanam, where she was coming from a drive, and this kind of deity ran towards her saying that, look, why don't we have a pact, and you give me a little bit of your power, and already people are there whose wishes I fulfill, and we will share the booty. Again she said, I am not interested. Many temples are haunted by these creatures. They are so called temples, but even she has spoken of a big spider who was just sucking people's desires. So the sum and substance is, wherever people throw desires, whether it is a marketplace or a so-called holy place, these beings come and occupy the throne, and they enjoy, they feel amused. This is their game. Sometimes they give us successes, but that's where Sri Aurobindo is telling us that make knowledge a poison. No, we read a line before. Luring to failure and meaningless successes. All models they corrupt, all measures cheat. Make knowledge a poison, virtue a pattern dull. So what they do, we have knowledge, some good knowledge, but they will make us turn it to evil uses. That's why in ancient time this knowledge was not given to uninitiates. Even now, this knowledge is not just going to give us the power to use them, thankfully. But there are people who turn this knowledge to evil purposes. So make knowledge a poison, virtue a pattern dull, and lead the endless cycles of desire through semblances of sad or happy chance to an inescapable fatality. Semblances, we say this is so sad, this is so happy, based on surface events. What do we know of God's plan inside? If we know that, probably our values will be reversed. Right now, when our desire is not fulfilled, we say it is a sad event, the result of bad karmas. And if our desire is fulfilled, we say good event, happy event, the result of good karmas. Probably if vision came to us, we would say, oh, my desire unfulfilled was the biggest grace of God. So many times when we look back, we say, my God, thank God, the divine cancelled this desire. Otherwise, we would have been in a terrible mess from the inner point of view. But these, at that level, it doesn't appear like that. At that level, we think these semblances are happiness or sadness. This is the kind of world they create. All by their influence is enacted there. Nor there alone is their empire or their role. In those native worlds, this is their law. But that is not the only place. Wherever are soulless minds and guideless lives, and in a small body self is all that counts, wherever love and light and largeness lack, these crooked fashioners take up their task. To all half-conscious worlds they extend their reign. Again, Mother cautions us in several places not to engage in this kind of a meaningless vital interchange. As one grows into inner life, one has to become so conscious even of meeting, casual meetings. If one reads Aurobindo's letters, it seems sometimes even simply shaking hands can be enough interchange for these beings to come. Because they crowd in such places. Especially the kind of marriages that take place and the kind of ceremonies that take place, they are teeming there. So, what are the places where we should avoid if we want to lead an inner life? Wherever are soulless minds and guideless lives. Plenty. The world is full of that. Soul is there, soulless minds, a mind which is tied to small things. And in a small body self is all that counts, where people believe that this body is the only thing to survive, to fill the belly is the only purpose. Wherever love and light and largeness lack, these crooked fashioners make up their task. In other words, if you want to throw them out, the simple way is let love, light, largeness bloom. That is why it is said that quarrel begets quarrel. People know it but don't understand this, that the more we quarrel, the more quarrel increases. Amazing. One can never ever settle a dispute or quarrel by disputing and arguing. It doesn't work out because we actually end up feeding these entities. They enjoy, they grow fat at our expense, and then they remain in the atmosphere for a long time and hang around like a cloud. And again we come to the spot and they say, oh, now we are hungry. And for no reason we begin to quarrel. And again, all around us begin to quarrel. Again they are fed, they are satisfied for a while. We are exhausted, our energy sucked out. And one day we begin to start falling ill. So what is the remedy? One cannot settle it with reason and argument. The remedy is love and light and largeness. If that comes, they will not come there. So this is the preventive medicine psychological hygiene, spiritual hygiene, Sri Aurobindo is teaching us. To all half-conscious worlds they extend their reign. Here too these godlings drive our human hearts. We are not safe from them. Our nature's twilight is their lurking place. All kinds of twilight zones. Doubt, smallness and largeness are meeting. Even sleep and waking, even that kind of twilight. Many people fall ill during that phase because that's the time when we are at lowest ebb. Our nature's twilight is their lurking place. Here too the darkened primitive heart obeys the veiled suggestions of a hidden mind that dogs our knowledge with misleading light. And they can give such convictions as if this is the thing to be obeyed. And they can go to any extent because they like to extend their empire. And stands between us and the truth that saves. When a person is in their grip and suffers from an incurable paranoia, suspicious of everything, afraid of everything, tell him that, look, open to the light, it will help you. Even that one will not do it. They can go to any extent. I have seen people who have been given this suggestion not to go near Samadhi, not to take Mother and Sri Aurobindo's name. They get these suggestions. Actually, they get these suggestions. Sometimes they feel afraid. I had a person who fell ill later. But before falling ill, at least I didn't know that he is in a phase when he may fall ill. He used to say, I don't know, when I see Mother's picture, I feel terribly afraid. And he used to turn it like this. Strange. And he used to literally obey this suggestion. The one thing which could save him. And so we have here this beautiful line. The veiled suggestions of a hidden mind that dogs our knowledge with misleading light and stands between us and the truth that saves. It speaks to us with the voices of the night. Our darkened lives to greater darkness move. Our seekings listen to calamitous hopes. They will whisper and give us as if this is the hope. But they are leading us from one precipice to another till one day they just push us off the edge. Our seekings listen to calamitous hopes. A structure of unseen thoughts is built and reason used by an irrational force. No reason works there. Please don't try to reason out. Bring light and largeness and true love. Any amount of reasoning is turned in their mind in a different way altogether. Your promptings will be taken as some suggestions with a different intent. So these are the kind of beings which govern human life in its extreme. What is the remedy? Sri Aurobindo will tell us much later after showing the extreme they can do. Not in this canto. After 2-3 cantos he will tell us they can sometimes completely occupy man's world. To the extent that the soul decides to retire. What is the safety? He says, only were safe who kept God in their hearts. A prayer upon their lips and the great name. This is what can save, because these entities are not rational beings and they cannot be subdued by human little will. This earth is not alone our teacher and nurse. The powers of all the worlds have entrance here. This is the problem. This is the difficulty. In their own fields they follow the wheel of law and cherish the safety of a settled type. On earth, out of their changeless orbit thrown, their law is kept, lost their fixed form of things. All the forces have an entry here. So we also would get these suggestions sometime or the other. But most of us fortunately have opening to a larger light, and that takes care of it. Every day our inner rooms are filled with dust, and the divine cleans them off through these higher powers. But sometimes they can completely occupy the world. Into a creative chaos they are cast, where all asks order but is driven by chance. Strangers to earth nature, they must learn earth's ways. Aliens or opposites, they must unite. They work and battle and with pain agree. These join, those part, all parts and joins anew. But never can we know and truly live till all have found their divine harmony. Our life's uncertain way winds circling on. Our mind's unquiet search asks always light, till they have learned their secret in their source, in the light of the timeless and its spaceless home. So this is, we'll end with on the next page, last 4 lines before we take a break. Page 154, line 1111. This is our doom until our souls are free. All remedies are partial remedies. Medication, reasoning, this, that, they are all containments. Till our souls are a captive of this net. So what we have to do is to press upon the psychic. That's what Sri Aurobindo and the mother at the end will tell us again and again. Bring out the psychic, not in others, in ourselves. We are worried about other psychic coming out. When we take a flight, it's very interesting. They give us instructions that do this, do that, and at one point they give us instruction that in case of cabin pressure dropping below a certain level, the oxygen mask will immediately come down. And then he says something very interesting. First put the mask over yourself before putting it on others. And they show a mother with a child. It's very symbolic because when there is a child, no mother or father can resist the impulse to give it to the child first. But even there he says, first you take, because then you can really help out. So even when those who are closest to us are caught in its grip, and we know this knowledge that look, to bring out the soul will help, we start telling the other person, bring out the soul and it will help. No. First bring out our own soul. By its pressure and presence, maybe we will help the other person. So, Sri Aurobindo is telling us, this is our doom until our souls are free. A mighty hand then rolls mind's firmaments back. Infinity takes up the finite's acts, and nature steps into the eternal light. Then only ends this dream of nether life.